All right, welcome back. We are Game 2014 and the Fall 2020 semester, and it's week 14, part 1 of our broadcast, and we're going to be talking about power-ups and moving platforms today as part of our thing. We're sitting at week 14, so that's assignment 2, part 2 is due this week, but I've given you guys a reprieve, and I've moved the due date for assignment 2, part 2 to Sunday, December the 13th. Which should give you guys an extra day or two. I know that Joss's Unity stuff is also due on Friday, so instead of me making the same day, I've moved mine off till Sunday to give you a couple of extra days in order for you guys to have some more time. So hopefully that helps. So that's the first thing. Second part is that I'm going to review some gameplay improvements that I've made for you, as well as we're going to talk about moving platforms and power-ups, and I'm also going to talk about the final test. I think I'm going to start with the final test right now so that it's done first, and then we'll move into the Unity demo. So one thing to do to note is that next week, week 15, is the final test. It'll start off as on Monday approximately, and last for the entire week. So you'll have until the end of Friday, next Friday, to do it. So that means when we look at the schedule of dates around the 14th, I'm hoping to get it out on the 14th to you. It will close on the 18th, so you have like your 5 days or so to do it. Might be 15th, doesn't matter. It shall only take you 2 hours approximately to do. So it's going to be very similar to the thing that we did in our midterm for the first one. It's going to be practical. It's going to be based on the labs that we've been doing together. So I'll probably be giving you a project that you'll be modifying. So pretty much in the same vein as we've been going this entire semester. No surprises. I may ask you to add something, as an example, a few things, and that's it. There's not going to be much. It's really evaluating, do you know how to manipulate a project that you've been given? I will try and clean up the project for you so that it is fairly good, well documented, let's say, and have everything you need. And then you'll start with the starter, just like you've been starting off all these little labs, and then at the end you'll have an end result. So very straightforward. I don't expect anyone to have a lot of difficulty with the test at all. Okay, so that is going to happen. So next week during this time frame, so next Tuesday, and that would be the 15th, so a week from today, we are not going to have a formal lecture. There's no formal lecture during that time. What I'll have instead is a get-together for those people who need assistance with anything, any kind of feedback on your marks, those kind of things that I have questions. I may have questions. You might have questions. Those kind of things that I'll have more about that next week. Then we can get together and I can go through any of the stuff that you want during our session together. So nothing, again, out of the ordinary or any surprises by any means, but just enough to get you going on your test. The test should be self-explanatory, but I'll also answer any questions. But again, no formal class. There will be no formal lecture. None of that stuff. It'll be just get together just for any kind of review or anything else you need on the test. So think about it as office hours next week. Okay, and they'll alleviate some of your time as well. If you have other pressing things, other assignments, as an example, or you might have other exams, those kind of things happening next week, totally cool. Go do those things. If you want to meet with me during the week through Discord, we can do that as well. But let's not make it so that you are overly stressed out, and that's not the point here. It should be, again, very straightforward for you to do, and there should be no issues. Okay, so that's the test done. Let's get into the meat and bones of what we're doing today. So today, up on Blackboard, I have a starter to go with, which is this Lab 11 starter, but there's no formal lab. Our labs are done. So the Lab 11 starter is there for us to share with. I'm sharing stuff with you now at this point. Okay, so if you download the starter, and I'm going to do the same in a second. Let's bring off under my desktop, we're going to go to Game2014, and I've got this little Lab 11 starter. I'm just going to copy paste it, and it's going to take a bit of time. So because I'm making sure that I have all the settings and everything ready so I can get going. But for you guys, it shouldn't take long. Just download the starter and start it off. Please remember to change the platform type to Android, because as when you download something from GitHub, it'll be the same thing for your test. When you grab something from your test, so things that you will have to do next week on the test, you will have to make a video. Okay, that's just normal at this point now. You will have to demonstrate your app in your video on a device or on a simulator. Okay, you need to do that. All right, so just like your assignment. So you should have some kind of simulator or device that you can show me that you've worked on your stuff. Okay. You're going to be given something. You're not going to start from scratch, which means, like, don't worry about, as an example, something that is unknown to you in terms of like the project. Your project, you're going to know. It's the project that we're working on right now. All right, that's the project base that we're going to start with. I may ask you to add a special effect, something that is not something that we haven't covered. For example, I might say something like, I want you to add X. Chances are, if I ask you to do something like that, you'll be given instructions, exact instructions on what to do, right, to make it work. Chances are, if I don't have to, I may not go that way in terms of what you're asked to do, but I may ask you also to do, maybe add a power-up, or maybe add a different kind of platform, or something that's based on the work that you've been doing on your assignments, right? So that way it's in line with the things that you're used to doing, okay? So those are the things that you can expect for next week. But afterwards, you'll be asked to submit your GitHub link. So you need to know GitHub. You'll be asked, finally, it's done. You'll be asked to submit your video and so on, and all the regular things that you've been asked to do throughout the semester. So nothing, again, exclusive or out of the ordinary, I would say. Okay, here we are for Lab V. We're going to start this off, and let's get going on this. So we did a lot of little things, and what I've done for you over the course of a week or so is put additional details into your project at this point. So here we are. As you can see, things look a little different. And I want to talk about a couple of innovations that we've put into place, that I've put into place. One, we finished off the mini-map. That's what happened last week. So when you play the game now at this point, you can see a couple things that happen, right? When I run and jump, you can see that all the same stuff as before, and I can also fire off these acorns, right? Which is pretty cool. I have a mini-map that tells me where I'm going, as an example, and also shows me any enemies that are nearby, like this one. You can see that the enemy's coming closer now at this point. I've also made the level slightly bigger, right? So the level is here, right? And I've added these little, what looks like power-ups. Okay, that's what these are. As well as what I'm going to use for a moving platform. So these are all the things that I'm going to show you how to do. As an example, the power-ups don't work right now, all right, but they will. They're going to give my little character here back his health, right? When I step on the platform, the idea is that the platform will move across, it'll activate, and that's really what I've got planned for you today. Not too much. We should end a little early if all things go well. But as you can see a little bit on the mini-map, my patrolling enemy. I've got some of these little sparklies that you can see. And when I fire off anything, you can see those too. You can see all that stuff happening in miniature form. So all those kind of things are what you should be seeing at this point. Great. Couple of things to change in terms of our character controller. One thing is, notice that there's this like circle here. And you wouldn't have seen this circle before. If you go out into 3D mode, just for a second, and we move onto the player. So if I go out to that player, notice like, even though we're in 2D, it's a 3D scene, right, that we're just casting into screen space. Notice that this thing is actually a little sphere. That's what it is, right? So I got a sphere that's happening right in front of the player. What the heck is that? Why did I do that? Why? So I did that because what I want to do is I want to make sure that you guys can see what my collider is going to look like and what the way I'm going to do my my detection. So I've created a little sphere here, and I do it only in the editor. In the simulator, it doesn't appear, right? And I'm going to talk about how I did that in a sec. But if I go to the player, you can see that the player has a capsule collider 2D here. And if I look at the capsule is slightly above where the sphere comes down. This is my sphere cast. That's what it is that I'm showing you. So I've changed it to sphere cast as opposed to a line cast. I've finally got tired of it, and I decided to bite the bullet and change it, which is fine. So let's take a look and see how that looks. So if I go into player behavior, then you're going to see that as soon as this updates. So a couple things that have changed. So I have a look in front, and I also have an is ground below. I've renamed it to is ground below. You can see now that I use something called the circle cast. And what the circle cast is basically I'm looking below, right? So I've got my transform position to start. So that's what the circle cast gives us, is if I hover over, it gives me two things. One is the origin and then the radius. So the radius is 0.4 units. I'm looking down for a length of 0.4, and I'm using a collision group layer like we've used before to kind of detect the platforms, the ramps, or the walls. One of those two things that I'm hovering over. And I'm not looking at walls, just platforms and ramps. If I'm grounded is if I have a hit at all, then I'm grounded. That's the idea behind it. True and false. So this is what we had before, but just the difference is I'm using a circle cast instead of a line cast. To show my gizmo, I'm using this onDraw Gizmos method, which is part of Unity's lifecycle. It's not me. And what you can do is you can say gizmos.color, and you can assign a color. For example, if I want to make that color green, right, we can change this to green. And if I go back out to the editor, then you can see now in a second that little line is going to be green there, as opposed to white. I just wanted to make it different, and that's what I made it. That's why I changed the color of my. I changed the color to white, but you can make this whatever color you want. All right, so I'll just keep mine at white. All right, and the other thing is I used a draw wire sphere. If you did a draw sphere instead, then what it would do is it would be an opaque sphere that gets drawn, which doesn't look that great, but that opaque sphere is really representative of my circle cast. All right, that's what it does. So, and I can draw this only in the editor. It's just editing tools, like just debugging tools. Okay, so that's what that is. So if I go draw wire sphere, then it brings it back to. Notice it'll change right back to a sphere right there in the editor. This is all editor stuff. Okay, so kind of cool. Good debugging tools. You can add other things too. If I say gizmos dot, you can see there's a bunch of stuff we can draw. I can draw a ray, a mesh, a line, an icon. I can draw whatever I want. Okay, and there's a bunch of stuff. You can make your own stuff too. All right, but really, it's pretty cool what you can do in here. And all I've done is I've added this in so we can visualize. From a visualization perspective, we would struggle if we couldn't see that. All right, so that's what this is. So I've used now a circle cast to detect his grounding, which means that when I move my character on the edge, so again, if I move my character, and I'll just move them right to the edge, you can see that the character themselves is grounded. So I'll go down to where you can see that it's grounded, right? So it's right here, it's grounded. And I can keep moving the player to the left. You can see that even though he is like just hanging on there, it's close enough where he's not going to fall off. It looks like he's pretty tight there. Again, I could change his collider shape so that he would fall at this point. I'm not doing that. I did it on purpose just so that you can see what this would look like. But you can see still, even though he's only partly on, he's grounded because of this, right? So you can see that he's not going to lose grounding like he did before. I'm using circle cast instead of a ray cast or line cast. Okay, so that's how that works. And I'm using a little gizmo. All right, cool. So I've got this, which we completed. I got this that we did, and now we have to talk about his grenades. So this little guy shoots acorns now. So if you kind of crunch down, right, he's going to toss out his acorns. The acorns do damage just like everything else. By the way, I've used the factory as well as the bullet manager and the object pool. I've created another object pool specifically for the player's bullets compared to the enemy's bullets. So if you looked at the game controller, you can see that I've got both something called fat bullets that the enemy uses as well as acorn bullets that the player uses. So they're both here. And I've modified the factory and the bullet manager and all that stuff to accommodate for different types of bullets that I want. All right, and I've done that for you instead of doing it like together. It's just an extension of what we've already done. All right, so nothing that's too crazy. But now at least he has an attack. Other things to note is now we also have a health bar for the enemy. So the enemy also has a health bar, and I can damage the enemy with my bullets. My bullets do 50 points each, so they're pretty tough. The things I just got to cast it at the enemy, and if you don't do it right, then the enemy will beat you. Now, the great thing about having a mini map, and this is the advantage now, it plays more like a game, in that I can actually see that there's an enemy coming, and I can use my tactics to kind of, if I can play the game properly, I can use my tactics to kind of shower my bullets down at the enemy to kill them, right? So now that the enemy's gone, and by the way, I don't destroy the enemy, I just hide the enemy. So the enemy is actually just inactive. So kind of where I'm at right now. And then I can run along and I can get to another place where I have these pickups like I talked about before, these power-ups, right? And I want to charge up these power-ups now. This is the first order of business. I want to make these power-ups work. So how does these power-ups work? Well, if I go to the gems, there's 7 of them. Let's make an 8th one. So Control D. And what I'm going to do with this gem is there are prefabs. So we're going to move this gem way out to the character where he is, so that way we can check it out. Right over there. And what if I put the gem like way up there? What does it do? And what it does actually, it'll just hover where I put it, right? Which is kind of cool. Yours aren't showing us prefabs. Yeah, I'm not sure why, Michael. They should. There should be under here, gem. They don't move either. That's really weird. That should totally work. Maybe I have another update that I haven't done. I'll put that in a second. But anyways, yeah, maybe I do. So, but more or less, these little gems that move up and down, what they do is they have actually a thing where if I put it higher, it will stay where it's going to be. As an example, and if I put it lower, then it's going to have a minimum distance between that and the ground. It should have a minimum distance anyway. Let's see how that looks. Right there. So it kind of pushes itself up, so it always is, roughly around the ground, kind of above the ground like this. Okay, so that's kind of what it does. I've set them up like this for you. Let's make sure that Michael and everyone else has the same stuff as I have. So I'll save my project, and then let's get out there and push this to GitHub. So. And just to make sure that you guys have what I have, I'm just going to, like I said, just push my project as is to GitHub. So let's do that. that's not a good sign. Let's get rid of my GitHub repository here just to make sure, because that'll go to the wrong folder, and that's not what we want. So let's try that again. So git init, git add dot, git commit -m, initial commit. Okay, there we go. And then we'll push it up. We'll make a repository online for our new folder. Right, so we'll go here and we will go new. Again, this is all stuff that you need to do for next week in terms of basic operation. Again, GAME2014 fall 2020, and it's lesson 14, right? But we'll call it lab 11B, even though there's no lab today. Okay, just so that we're clear. Cool. I'm going to grab these last 3 lines of code, and I'm going to go to my command prompt and paste and enter, which should do everything we need. Now, Michael, if you download that one, I'm so sorry, then it should be okay. Check the code. Maybe it's not a prefab. I'm not sure what happened there, but that should totally work. Oh, it's showing now. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Anyways, it's up on GitHub for those people who are running late. You can download Lab 11B, and you'll have this later on when we move. Okay, let's launch what we have again, just to get going. So here's Lab 11B. And, okay, back to this. So I got my little gem, and I've moved it over here now. Again, you can move it over. There's a bunch of gems. You can also drag and drop the gem from the prefabs folder, but what I want is when I touch the gem, I get health back. Okay, that's the idea behind it. So, and I also want a little noise that I want to use. So when I touch the gem, I have a little noise that's made, like a beep, some kind of pickup noise or something to give me feedback, so that way I can get my health back and I feel good about it. All right. So that's kind of the thing that we're going to be doing. So a couple ways. One to note is that the gem, so if I click on the gem there that I have, and I put it inside of a gems, super folder, if you will. So here's my gem right there. You can see that it already has a Circle Collider 2D, okay? And it also has something called a gem behavior. So gem behavior, what it does is it really just kind of goes up and down, right? That's all it does. And I do a little toggle where it does a ping pong, which is a mathf ping pong. It uses time.time to kind of move across a series of, from, let's say, from 0 to 1. I take the ground level that it detects by using some kind of raycast. Raycast hits the ground. It detects where the hit is going to be made, and then it adds a vector 2 up, so just 1 point above the ground is where it puts it. And then once it's grounded is true, then I set the gravity scale to this little thing as 0, because otherwise it's going to fall. That's the idea behind it. I can also change the detection rate. This is the length of the ray. I can change this to smaller if I wanted to, so it takes longer for it to detect. Either way, it's going to just be just above the ground when it starts off. Okay, so that's what this little gem does. It doesn't do anything, but what I want to do is when I collide with the gem, on trigger enter, as an example, I want to be able to get health back. So a couple things to note is I should probably put the gem, all the gems itself. So I'm going to go back to the prefab. I'm going to click on the gem, and I'm going to change the gems tag so that it makes sense. I'm also going to put it on its own layer. So I'm going to say, let's make a new gem layer. So here's gem. And I also want to make its own tag. I want to make a new gem tag. There it is. So gem layer, gem tag. And what I want is for this to be on its own gem tag as well as its own layer. If I need to show it or hide it, as an example in here. So that's what the gem will do. Also notice something else. In my, actually I'll talk about this later, but inside of my mini-map, some of you may be saying, well, I don't understand why we can see it on the mini-map, the marker, but we can't see it inside of the editor. I've just turned it off. So if you go to layers on the editor itself, on the top, you can actually show and hide anything you want. For example, let's say I don't want to see health bars, I can turn them off. And it's only going to happen in the editor. I don't want to see the player, I don't want to see the walls, you know, whatever I don't want to see I can turn off right here, and it turns off the entire layer, right? So anything that's on the layer, so that's why I've turned it off. Because I think markers are a little bit annoying. See that all the time. It appears inside the scene when it runs, but it's not going to appear here to bother us. All right, so that's why I've turned it off. Okay, so going back to this. So I want to collide with this. It's going to detect that it's a gem, and as soon as it detects, it's going to add health, not remove health. All right, so we can do that in the player behavior. So again, I'm going to go back to the player, and I put the player inside of another empty called player. You can call this whatever you like. I've also done the same thing with the opossums. Each of the opossum has their own upper layer called enemy, right? Kind of a super, you know, kind of game object that these things are children of now. And it's that way just to compartmentalize everything. I was planning to make prefabs of those, and it might happen for the test next week. Okay, so here's the player, and we know that the player has something called player behavior. So let's go into player behavior and take a look at that. I have a on trigger enter 2D where I can detect if it's a bullet and I take damage. Well, I want to trigger enter 2D, and if it's a gem, then I want to heal damage. So if other.gameObject.compare tag is equal to gem, then what I want to do is I want to heal damage, and let's make us heal 10 damage. I don't have a heal damage method. Let's make one. So under take damage, we'll make something called heal damage. Maybe we'll make it public for now, right? And we'll do some of the same kind of stuff. I want to do health plus equal to damage this time. And I want to say that if health is greater than 100, right, that's the damage max, and you might say max damage or max health. There might be a max health value, right? Whatever that's going to be. I know Michael mentioned it last time, where what if I want to have a health that's 200 or 500? For now, I'm just going to say 100. If health is greater than 100, then we want to say that health is equal to 100, right? And that is this. And then I want to say that I want my health bar update to happen just like we normally do before. So that is the, you know, instead of health, we want this to be called heal damage, not health. Okay, there's heal damage. So heal damage will heal everything when I collide with that object. That's simple as that, right? So let's try that out. And let's test it by doing a couple things. So in game, I will temporarily reduce my health. It won't show up in the health bar because we're not made that way. But let's suppose I reduce my health to 90 as an example. And by the way, where is my gem? What happened to it? So let's go to the gem. It's right here. And why isn't it showing up? Well, remember that the reason why something wouldn't show up in the simulator is layers. Layers, right? So I just added a new layer called gem, right? So if it's not showing up here, that means it's not a layer that the camera recognizes. That's in the main camera here. So in the main camera, the culling mask that I'm using right now is not detecting acorns, death planes, or markers. It doesn't render those things. Let's go into gem. So if I press play now, if that was the problem, then it would show up, right? That works okay, but that is something we want. So now we want to kind of, let's reduce our health. So I'm going to go to player, and let's reduce our health temporarily to 90. So I'm going to go to 90. It's not going to show here on the health bar, but that's okay. What I want to do is when I touch this right now, that it should be 100, and it did. It went to 100 again from 90. So if I push this to 80 and I go back, right? Goes back to 100, right? And what I want it to do as soon as I touch it, because if I touch it more than once, it's going to continue to give me health. I want it to go away. So let's do that next. So back in here, when I collide with something, so this is on collision, enter on trigger enter 2D. Sure, I got some health, but I also want to make the other thing, other.gameObject.setActive to false. I want to just hide the gem. And that's what I kind of do for my enemies too, hide them. And I want to make a sound. I don't have a sound, so let's make that sound happen. I'm going to go up online. I'm going to go to BFXR, like we've done before, and grab a sound that I want to calculate. I have probably some sounds that I've made already. I'm just going to grab one that I like. So pick up something like that, like a little blip. You know, like I kind of like that. It says pick up coin, but it's not. It's just a blip, right? And that's what I want the little thing to sound like. If I want to make it the double noise, like something like that, or it's fine too. You can choose whatever sound you want. I just want a little blip. So I'm going to save that. And I want to put it inside of GAME2014 Lab 11B under sounds right here. And let's call this gem. Right? So there's my gem sound. Again, there's a couple of choices for us to make here. One thing is I really need an audio manager. And actually, Kat, you said this last time. I wouldn't trust if I was, to trust the order here. And I just don't have an audio manager right now. I don't have the time today. I probably won't have one. But I may ask you guys to make one, right, on your test. Hint, hint. That might be something that I get you guys to make. Make an audio manager that sorts sounds or whatever. So it might be something that I ask you to do. Imagine you're working on a big team and I'm like, hey, this is not a great way of doing stuff. Make it so that the audio manager has a list of all the sounds that you're going to use, and we're just going to call the audio manager for a specific sound, impulse sound that we want to make, or music or something. Okay, so this is cool, and a sound mixer would be good too. How about that? So this is pretty cool. I've got these. I want to add another component. Let's add another audio source. For now, we're just going to keep it. Remember, my motto is make it work. And then after you make it work, then you go through and you refactor. So for now, I'm just making it work. So here's my gem sound. Dragging and dropping that in there. I don't want to play in awake, but it's going to happen when I do that. I also have to make, there's a little enum that I'm using, and Russ is always good on enum, so I've satisfied his requirement. I'm trying to satisfy everybody here today. Michael, Kat, Russ, whoever. So die, throw, and then I want the gem sound. That's the gem sound I want to make. When I pick up the gem, it's going to make that sound. Okay, so cool. So now in my on trigger enter 2D, not only do I set active the gem to false, but I also want to make a little sound. And the way that would work is, and by the way, different ways of doing this. I recommend there's two things. Either when you take damage like I did before. Here I want to heal damage, and in take damage, notice I make a sound here, play random hit sound. I'm going to do the same thing with heal damage. When I heal any damage, that's when I'm going to make the sound. All right, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to say the sound, so sounds, and then int, and then impulse sound is what I called it, dot gem. And I want to play the gem sound. Okay, you can also call it pickup or something that makes more sense to you. Okay, so that's what it does. So heal damage, and then when I pick it up, it's going to make that nice little sound. Hopefully we can hear it as we go through, and it'll disappear when we're good to go. So we'll move over, and then as I move over, and if I jump, you can see right there, it makes a little sound there, and it's gone. And if I had less than 100 health, I would have 100 health again. Okay, and to test that, if I run through the game, and now let's suppose I get damage. So we're oh gosh, sorry, I'm looking at it from a limited view. All right, and I get damaged and I run away from these guys and I pick up some stuff now, you can see now that I can get some health back. Right? Right? So he's got a little bit more health, okay? And yes, I can probably try and kill these guys now, but I'm gonna get pretty... Hey, my acorns do 50 damage each. That's why I'm alive. But if I fall, bad things happen. Alright, so that's kind of the way that works. And pretty good so far. Alright, now if you guys can't hear the sounds, it's because I haven't shared my computer sounds. Let me just do that one more time. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to reshare my screen so you can hear my sounds. And also optimize screen for screen sharing for video clips, which should make it a little bit less choppy than it is right now. I'm not sure if you guys can see this better or worse, and I've got the wrong screen going. How about that? Stop sharing and reshare. And maybe choose the right screen this time. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So that's the difference. So when I play now, you should be able to hear the sounds if you couldn't hear them before, for people that are here in the room. Okay? There we go. And you should see the animation is probably less choppy than it was before. Alright, so that is the gem. We've taken care of that stuff, and this is good. We've given ourselves a mechanism to get health back, which is a problem that we had in the game. Now the next thing I want to do is talk about this. We've kind of created a level now that's a little longer. Got a few gems here to get some health back, and I've got this platform. And what I want to do is create a moving platform that goes from here to here. Lots of ways to do this. My method is going to be slightly different, and you may agree or disagree. You know, we'll see how it goes. So let's think about this as a strategy. So I kind of did this in the gems. I have this idea in the gem. If I go to the gem behavior, where if you look at it here, I have a ping pong, right? I want to kind of use the same idea. I want to ping pong from one position to the other, right? So I want to use this same idea. So I want to create this on the platforms. What I've done, these platforms are actually separate. So they're not prefabs yet. What they are, I'm going to take one and make it into a prefab in a second. I've taken individual tiles here, and I've made them into just a platform. One thing I failed to do was notice the order and layer. They're not all one. Let's make them all one, guys. So I'm just going to go and just do that quickly for all of them, right? Because again, this is something that I may ask you guys to do on a test if I change the order and layer or something. But those are the three platforms that I have. Okay. The platforms have a moving platform controller, but one thing is that they're tagged as platforms. I want to change the tag to moving platform, so to kind of detect when I'm on it, as opposed to a regular platform. So let's make a new tag, add a tag. We'll call this moving platform. So moving platform is the tag that I want to detect, and I want to go to each of these platforms. So I want to select them all, and I want to change the tag from platforms to moving platforms. It's going to ask me a lot of times if I want to rejig all these under here. It didn't, which is fine. The collider is really on the moving platform anyway, and it's a box collider 2D. So very, very simple. So notice the box collider is right around the entire platform. Okay? Pretty cool. So that is the platform. What I want to do with the moving platform controller is, for now, let's test to see how I move from one spot to the next, right? I want to have a start and I want to have an end, right? So let's make two for the, I'll start off simply with the first platform. Let's hide these ones for now so we don't have any errors. And let's make a new empty. So I'll make a new empty object called start platform one, or platform one start. Platform one start. Okay. And what I want to do actually is put it inside of platform 1. So moving platform 1, here it is. And let's just re-center everything. And I want to take the, I want to turn on something that I can see. I've hidden them in Gizmos, so you may want to go and make that bigger so you can see it. 3D Gizmos, and if I double click onto it and I want to see it, why isn't that I'm not seeing it right now? Let's take a look at that. I think I may have turned it off completely. There it is. It's got to be big enough. It's got to be like beyond the middle point. So there's my platform 1 start, and this is the start. And I want to do the you know, the second one. Just a second. So let's take this platform 1 start and duplicate it. Again, this is just beginning. We're just thinking about how to do this thing, right? So I want to grab this platform 1 start and pull it out. Here's platform 1 start. Notice that it takes the same, when I pull it out of the parent, it takes the same position as the parent. So that's kind of a trick. And I want to copy paste, so Control D makes a same platform, but we'll call this platform 1 end. Again, kind of verbose, but that's okay. And I want to take this platform 1 end and pull it to the other side. So I want to say this is the start. Here's where it kind of ends. I don't know if it's the right position yet. Probably not, but that's okay. Right, so that's the platform start, platform end is what I have. I want to feed this information to the platform. So here's my moving platform. I want to go here, and I want to make it so it's generic. So I want to kind of have public transform, we'll call it, and we'll say start, and public transform end, right? So start and end. And what I want is that I want to detect start and end, right? I want to subtract these to create a like a distance, if you will, between them. Instead of doing like, I want to get a magnitude for both the x and y coordinates. So think about it as the displacement magnitude. There's lots of ways to think of this thing. Let's just call it something. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to make it a private value, which it's going to be a vector3 object, which is what I want. And it's like distance or whatever you want to call it. Let's call it distance. Okay, so distance then is equal to end minus start. We need the positions, not the transforms. So we're going to do something like looks like this. Okay. Okay, are you with me? So hopefully you guys are. Again, all I'm doing is I'm changing the, thanks Michael, I'm just changing I'm setting up the distance. So I'm going to have distance x, distance y, and distance z. Okay. I want to have a move function. So we'll say I want to move. We'll make it private underneath here, just like we've done in the past. We set a private void underscore move. This move method is going to basically do that ping pong effect, right? So let's grab my ping pong from here, this exact line here, from the gemBehavior.cs file, and put it inside the moving platform one. So this is what I want. There is no ground level, but what I want is for my start position dot, I'm moving across the x-axis here instead of the y-axis. So it's going to be, let's replace it, start position, start dot, so it's a position dot x, right? That's the starting position. And I'm going to ping pong with this kind of thing right here, this part. So this is the ping pong. So plus math f.pingpong. Math f.pingpong, what it does is it uses kind of a lerp that uses t as the time value between, and this value here, 1, this is the actual length, how far it goes. That's the boundary, if you will. So this will keep on adding up and adding up until it gets to this boundary, and whatever the upper boundary is, if it goes beyond that, it'll start counting back down again. That's why it's called ping pong. It'll go up to this boundary, whatever it is, and then it'll go back down. This boundary is going to be the distance.x. So distance.x. So whatever the distance was between the two start and end points, going to calculate the distance that it's going to move, the difference between these two things, and then it's going to move my object, right, every frame closer and closer to that position, and then it's going to move it back. The y-axis doesn't have to change. So for now, all I'm going to do is replace all this stuff with, kind of a start.position.y. It's going to be the same as it ever was. Okay, and z is not going to change. Let's see how this works. Let's start with this and see if it actually does what I want it to do. And if it doesn't, we'll adjust it. All right, so let's go back and try this now. All right, back to this, and I want to run it. And if we should kind of kind of drag and drop these ones in there. So if we don't do that, then it won't know where to start and where to end, and it'll give us a bit of a problem. But now it should work. So if I just run it, and if I just go to that position, you can see now that it does indeed go from one place to the other very simply. All right, so it kind of goes to one end. And we may have to adjust the ends. Oh, that's a little bit too far. So let's just drag that a little bit further back. Maybe there. And try that again. It's fairly slow. I mean, it's up to you how fast you want to make the platforms go. Maybe a little bit faster than this might be okay, right? But you want it to go kind of from the beginning to the end and back. Now, there's issues with platforms. That's not bad. There's issues with platforms. For example, when you move a platform over, what happens if I die over here? You need to be able to call it back. I may not handle that today, and that needs to be further back. This one here needs to be slightly further back than what it was, just to start like right at the corner. Again, let's see how that starts. I'm pretty good. So that's how it works. That's how ping pong works. Ping pong, it'll increase the time value, and it'll interpolate between one value and the other, and then it'll come all the way back. And it's a great way of kind of producing some kind of moving object that goes back and forth between two values. There's lots of other things you can use ping pong for. In the past, I've used it for different things. That's too far back. That's it. Okay, so that's kind of where it's going to go. So that works, but I only want it to activate when the player touches it. So the player is going to run over there, and when he touches the platform, then it's going to move. Otherwise, it's not. How does that work? So let's go back to this. So, okay. And this is great for a horizontal platform, but what about if I wanted to make it a vertical platform? Can I do the same thing? Well, I'm going to have a problem. Math.pingpong doesn't like this value to be 0. So if I was going to subtract end position minus start position, the problem with this is the value of y would be 0 because they're on the same level right now. And because they're on the same level, this would not compute. So in order for me to make it so that it is more flexible, I need to have some other value. Let's put that in here first. So I'm going to say var distance x, right, is equal to, and this is the value, if my the distance.x is greater than 0, then it's a valid number. And then what I want is my distance x to be equal to all of this. Right? Math.pingpong, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, I want my distance x just to be equal to the start position.x. So that way I don't have an error. Alright, so that's kind of what I want. So hey, distance x, I'm going to check to see if the actual distance.x is greater than 0, and if it is, then distance.x is going to be equal to start position plus all this. Okay, and then I want to replace this stuff with distance x. All right, and the same thing goes with distance y. So this way I can have other kinds of platforms. All right, as opposed to just platforms that go right and left. And I want to do the same thing, so I'm going to check to see that distance y now instead of x. If y is greater than 0, then we're going to start with the y position plus math ping pong time.time. But you're going to see there's a problem here with time.time. And you'll see it in a sec. But now this will give me the ability for me to start a platform and put it anywhere I want. So example is if I go back to this, and let's suppose that I take the platform end and put it up here. That's going to be a problem. And we're going to see why that is a problem in a second. So if I did that as an example, and I looked at the platform, it's going to try and go up there, right? But not, right? It's not going to go right to there. It's not going to go there. It's going to try and ping pong around because it's following the time value. That's going to be the maximum value. And it's funny, it's a weird effect, maybe not what you want, but it'll ping pong around until it gets to, from the beginning all the way to the bottom, and it'll ping pong around like it's a brick, like just continue, running around in reversing direction when it gets to the top or the bottom. So if you want this effect, that's cool, but that's not the effect that I wanted. In fact, what I really wanted was something that's like more like this, where if I want to move the brick up, as an example to there, then it should be able to move up. Now this is not exactly the same, so there's going to be a little bit of variation, but don't worry about that. Now it's going to try and do one of these, right? Because not slightly off, it's going to keep going up and down just like so. So kind of straightforward, right? It's going to ping pong around until it does it. You can make all kinds of lovely effects like this, right? If you like it. Let's put it back to where it was. There, that's where it was. Cool. So that's what it will do now, and it's flexible enough to do that kind of stuff, no problem. And the ability for us to make a platform go like that is great, but I want to activate the platform when my character hits it and not before. So how do I do that? So yeah, so only what this is going to be is if the object is active, right? If it's active, and I'll make it so that let's make this system serializable so we can access this from somewhere else. So system.serializable, and then what we'll do is we'll make a new public boolean called isActive, right? If the platform is active, and only if it's active will we make it move. Okay, and we'll set isActive by default to false, right? Which will be here. Okay, and we'll turn isActive on and off by the character touching it. Okay, so when player behavior, going back to player behavior now, I'm going to use a different kind of collider for this. So on collision, on trigger enter is for triggers. On collision enter is for touching. So I want to touch the platform, and on touch, if other.gameObject.compare tag, when I enter the platform, as an example, and it is a movie platform, then I want to activate it, and I can do that by saying other.gameObject get component, and I want to look for the component which is the moving platform controller, and I can say isActive is equal to true. I know it's long, but it's a quick and dirty way of doing it. And I can do the same thing, copy this, if I have an on collision exit. Let's do an on collision exit. So private void on collision exit 2D. There's lots of issues with this, but it works. And we can say if other game object compare tag moving platform, then we make this false. When I leave the platform, it'll stop moving it. It'll still deactivate it. All right. So the problem with this problem is when I activate it and deactivate it, you'll see it's funny. Also, we'll have a problem. Another problem is if I hop on the platform, it's gonna throw me off the platform. Let's move my character here for testing purposes so you can see what I'm talking about. So let's go to the player. Here's the player, and let's move that player way over here so we can test with the platforms, like way over here. So here's how it would work. So I've got my player, yay, and I move over to the platform. And as soon as I touch the platform, I fall. A couple things happen here, right? The character, the reason why it fell is because, well, the game has already started, and what's happening is that time.time has moved the platform. It's continuing to update the platform anyway because time continues to march. So this is an issue, right? The other thing is that my character doesn't stick on the platform. So what I need to do is, going back to the code, I want to say that when I collide with the platform, I want to make the platform its parent. That's a typical way of doing it. So I'm going to say something like transform.setParent, I think it's the better way of doing it, is equal to, I want to make the parent the new the other dot GameObject.transform. All right, so that is going to be the parent now of my player. But that's not going to solve my issue. That's just going to make it so that I stick to the platform. If I'm fast enough, I'll be able to stay on the platform and it won't fall off. And I'll actually move with the platform. But there's going to be another problem that you're going to see as I start this thing off, in that as soon as I move on the platform, right, it's going to have other issues, other special effects come into play, if you want to call it special effects. So again, move on, let's move slowly on the platform. You can see now that it jumped over here. Now I can continue moving on the platform, no problem. And I'll even move back, I'll get hit, the whole thing happens. But if I jump, it kind of jumped too, right? Because, well, the platform continues to move, right? Why? Because of the platform behavior, this time.time. So what I really need is a platform timer. Let's do that. It's just like we did with the camera shake. I'm going to make a new public float called platform timer. And platform timer is going to start off at 0. So we're going to set timer at 0. And what I want is when it's active, and only when it's active, I want to increment the platform timer by delta time. So I can say something like platform timer plus equals to time dot delta time. And what this is going to do is increment the value of platform timer by delta time, just like time would, but only when it's active. So if I jump off of it, it'll stay where it's at, and it won't increment until I move again. And ping pong won't move anything. We need to change this from time.time to platform timer. And now it'll move according to my timing. Now you can use other methods here. You can use other things like a coroutine. You can do things, there's other things that you can do here. You can do for X and Y, right? Not a problem. Okay, so again, this is totally the way you want to make it happen. This is the way I want to make my platforms, but there's some special effects you can add in. Again, you can make this as flexible as you want. So far, not that flexible. What if I wanted to have, here's another option. Instead of me having a start and an end, what if I wanted to follow a path? Might be better, right? So I can say, okay, instead of a ping pong effect, I want you to follow a path. I want you to go from A to B to C to D. Depending on the length of the path, I want you to follow anywhere I want you to go on the path. I want the platform to move. That is a way better way of doing things. But for now, we have to walk before we can run. And besides, I might ask you to do that stuff on the test. You never know. All right, so again, simple things that you can probably handle and figure out. Okay, so let's see how this works now. I'm not going to move the timer until it's active. So let's see how that works. Maybe it will work better now for me, right? Maybe. Let's see how this works. And cool. So go on the platform. Hey, see now it works. And if I jump, right, the platform stays where it is. I'm a bad jumper, but the platform can stay where it is. Didn't move, right? See what happened? It stayed where it was. Now this is good and it's bad, right? See? What happens if I want to go back now and I'm back on my journey to go back in there? This is another problem, right? And I knock this guy off or whatever, or die. Sorry, it's pretty loud. Sorry. Alright. I'm gonna die. Anyway, what I meant is, what if I die here and I fall off and the platform's halfway through? There's no way I'm gonna make it across, right? So what other people do is they have a switch, some kind of a way of calling the platform back, if indeed they're gonna make things stop. Okay? So just letting you know, there's some issues we have to deal with. Okay, that here. We don't have a switch for that, but this is pretty cool. Let's check to see if the other platforms work now too. Let's bring them back in. So again, I'm bringing this one back in and we'll make it active. Here it is. So what I want for this one is the same kind of setup that I have here, a start and an end. So I'm going to kind of do a create empty, and then I'll make this the platform 2.start, and I'll drag this one out of here like so. And what I'll do is I'll drag and drop that one here, right? And I'll duplicate that, Control D, bring that back up. Pretty simple. Rename this to platform 2end. Here's platform 2end, and then in my platform, I'll drag the end to there. Now I've got platform start and end. I want to show both these platforms in the inspector. Let's make them so that they're red. Let's grab platform end, and let's bring platform end up to here, something like that. And there's the next platform with some more gems. And let's see how that would work if I can get to that platform. So I'm going to go over there, and maybe what I'll do is I'll start preparing by launching some of those acorns, right, to kill my enemy, because I know he's coming. He's gone now. I know it's cheating. And, oh, darn it. That's a problem, right? We need a checkpoint. That's the next thing we're going to do. Because I don't want to go through this again. Wow, what a pain, right? To go through all this again, just to go all the way back, get healed a little bit, right? And look at what happened now. My platform is gone, right? It's way over here. This is the problem that I talked about before. There's no way, even if I was to run and somehow, oh, I could have made it. I can't believe it. That's terrible. But you can see my problem, right? My problem is I'm a bad player, A, and B, well, it's a problem, a real problem. When the platform goes and it stops in the middle, or if I fall off, I need a way of getting it back here. Or if I die, is it a good idea to reset it somehow? Like right there, right? Is that a good idea? So let's see what happens with the, by bringing the character, we'll contrive the character being there. Let's turn off this little guy for now, because, you know, for testing. So we'll go into our enemy. So under enemies, you can see that I have my enemy number 2. There he is. Our enemy number 2. And we'll just turn him off. And let's move my player back on there so we can get in there. Hopefully he's not going to die. I'm actually going to be okay, maybe, huh? What do you think? Except where, well, there's no platform. So let's move him over. We'll cheat. What? They hit me. Man, that enemy's pretty smart. No, that's because I'm pretty dumb. Alright, oh, undo. I meant to move the player itself. And why? No, that's the player health bar. Isn't that interesting? Well, let us make sure we put the enemy back out of commission and move my guy, which is the player, this guy, over where I want him, which is over here. So we can test this platform out. Alright, let's go back. So there he is, and I want to touch this platform, and sure enough, we're good to go. But if I fall, that is a big issue, because then this platform's moved and I can't get on it. I need either a recall mechanism, or when I die, a way of it going back to normal. Alright, so you can see now that this works, and it's going to ping pong between where I'm at and I'm going to fall. And where this is. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's where it goes up and down. It'll keep on going up and down there. And it's pretty good. It'll get to the top. So that totally works. Let's do the same thing for the last one. The last one goes from this one all the way up there, right, to the last point. So let's fix that up. And then we'll make this all work like normal. So I'll bring this back into play. And then I will do the same thing I did last time. So again, I'll create an empty. We'll call this empty platform 3 start. Right? And we'll drag and drop this out right here. And once we do that, we'll Control D. And we'll bring that back over here. Platform 3 end. Again, what we need desperately is a prefab. But not to worry. Remember, make it work. That's the most important thing. So platform 2, I need a start. And I need an end. Let's color these things so I can see them. And let's grab the end and move it up to where I want it, which is up here somewhere. Okay. And that's where the door is to leave the level. Yay. We kind of have a little level design happening. Okay, not too crazy, but allows us to do stuff. Let's move our character to test that platform so we know it works too. And it's going to. But we have a problem. We have to deal with that problem. So this is one of the problems. One of the problems is when we come up, and if I die, or even if I jump down, what if I jump down here? I can't get back onto that platform. There's no chance I can do that. So again, there's some recall mechanisms we can do. Now, that made it worse, actually. But if I die, it should either come back, or I must have a recall mechanism. The other thing is that I don't always want to start way back here. I need to start with a checkpoint. And I have a checkpoint that's set up. For now, we've made our moving platforms move, right? We've got our gems working. This is a great place to put it up on GitHub. So save, file, save, project, and let's get out of this. And let's put this up on GitHub. So git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added moving platforms. So you can see it's not that difficult. It's just we have to do a little bit of prep to get all that waiting for you, right? Yeah, we can do a Unity event or checkpoints, which is what I recommend. We'll do checkpoints and then we'll stop for a short break, and then we'll come back and see if we can recall. Okay? Let's do the next part. So bring this up. And we'll test it on the device. So far, understandable? Are you guys good? Everybody? Kat, are you okay? Understandable for you? And for Kevin and for everybody else? I just want to make sure that you guys are on the right page, because then what's going to happen is for the people that aren't here next week or who are not watching the video for whatever reason, thank you for your responses. Then, well, it's going to be, maybe pretty challenging what's going to happen, right? Because if you don't watch what's happening, then, trying to decipher a project, you don't have to watch the video anyway, right? So we need some cleanup over here now. Let's clean up the platform start and ends. We'll just call it moving platforms. So make another empty. We'll call it moving platforms. Kind of like what I did with gems and enemies, right? And I have my platform 1 start and end, platform start and end. I'm going to grab all this and put it inside of here. Moving platforms, nice and clean. Now I want to handle checkpoints, and I want to put my character back to the beginning. So let's move my character back there. So grab my player and move that guy or girl way back to the beginning, and to show you that this is going to work. Alright, so there we are. We're back at the beginning. And I have a spawn point here, right? So what we have at the beginning is if I die, just to recount, it goes back to here. Let's just move that gem because it's bugging me, because it's like always getting interacted with every single time the player comes back. Let's move it a little bit higher than what it is. All right, so this one, move it up here. Maybe a little higher. There we go. All right, and that should work pretty good. Let's see. Yep, it's pretty good. It's up there, so I'll have to jump for it now, right? But what I want is when the player dies, he's got a checkpoint, or they've got a checkpoint. So here's the spawn point right now. Spawn point is right here. And spawn point isn't showing up. Let's make it orange for the spawn point. I want to create several more spawn points. I also have something called checkpoints. So if you notice, what I did was I created some triggers, and I put them here and here. And I'm going to put another one here. All right, so let's put the next one. So I'll copy paste. So Control D for checkpoint 3. There's checkpoint 3. And we'll just move checkpoint 1, undo. Let's make sure that they're on top of each other. Yep. So make sure they're right. I move this one over here. So what these checkpoints are, they're just triggers. That's all they are. So if a character passes through the trigger, it will activate the checkpoint. I don't have any kind of script for this, but we're going to make one. And what I want along with this is I want all the checkpoints to have their own spawn point. So again, if you fall off here somehow, I don't know, that would be a real pain to come all the way back. So I want to at least go back to this checkpoint, to the one before it. But what about this? This would be bad. Let's make checkpoint 4. Right? Again, I'm thinking from the player's perspective. Somehow you fall off this thing and you have no way of getting back. We'll make a way back. But for now, let's just add another checkpoint. So way up here, if you get to this level, this part, maybe there's going to be another room or something else somewhere else, another place. We're adding some verticality to this whole thing. But here you can see that I've got several checkpoints now. And let's move these kind of together so they're kind of organized this way, 1, 2, 3, so I can add them. There's no prefabs. I mean, it'd be a great place to put prefabs for these things, I think. But you know, for now, let's leave it as is. Okay, next I have a series of, I have a spawn point, but I want more of these. So let's copy paste, and let's move that spawn point around. Let's move that to the next checkpoint. And let's make sure that when I zoom in there, this will say check spawn point 2. Again, many ways to do the same thing. You don't have to do it the same way I'm doing it at all. Yes, you could, Michael, you could, but I want to. There's a method to my madness. You could. The only thing is that you'd move like way up here, right, the middle of it, whatever the checkpoint is, and you'd fall, which is fine. But I want to give you some. I think spawn points decoupled from checkpoints are good in that you may want to have the character be around the same checkpoint, but not necessarily right on it, right? So some kind of, I don't know, an additional position is what I'm suggesting, right? If you agree. So here's spawn point 2. Let's Control D. We'll call this spawn point 3. So let's move spawn point 3 around to the next checkpoint, which is over here. Right, so this is checkpoint 3. And you know what? Might as well give the checkpoints some color too so we can see them. Let's make them all blue. Alright, so spawn point 3, like you said, Michael, will be right on top of the checkpoint for now, or around it, just so that we can see what it's like. So so checkpoint 2, right? And let's go to checkpoint 1. We can see where the spawn point's going to be, right about there. Or you can make it further in if you want to do that. That's the advantage of doing checkpoint and spawn point decoupling. It's up to you, truly. This would work either way, right, when we do it. But if I go to checkpoint 2, which is over here, then we'd have spawn point 3. And let's say we want to make that maybe in a little bit. And checkpoint 2, we maybe move that back just a touch because we want it so that it is on the corner. So as soon as the character passes this, they can get to the checkpoint if they die. And spawn point 3 or checkpoint 3, we want another spawn point. So Control D, we'll call this spawn point 4. And we'll move this one over here. You see where I'm going with this, I'm hoping. Right? And the last one, which is checkpoint 4, up there, I want to do a spawn point 5. So 5 different spawn points, right? And we're using this so that way it gives the player more comfort and it's not as bad instead of starting over again. It's a pain when you have to go right from the beginning again to this. Okay, so how do I make all this work? Checkpoints and spawn points. Let's add on the first checkpoint, let's add a new script. I'm just going to make this a little bigger here. I'm going to call this new C# script. We'll call this checkpoint controller. Again, you could have all this actually, I'm just putting it up to you, in a checkpoint manager where you have a bunch of checkpoints managed and spawn points, and another way, much different way of doing this than the way I'm doing it. I'm keeping it simple, but you can do it in your own way. I'm not going to need any of this because there's not going to be an update. What I am going to need is a public spawn point, which is a transform. So spawn point. Okay, and I'm also going to need the player. So the player is called player behavior. I need those two things. Okay. And then what I need is some kind of trigger collider. So again, private void, and we're going to say on trigger enter 2D collider 2D other. Again, we've done this before, where the other GameObject.compare tag is the player. Only then will we change the spawn point of the player to the spawn point that we present here. So where I say that the player dot spawn point is equal to spawn point. Pretty simple. It's like a few lines of code. Okay. So again, I need the player reference because then I can actually access their spawn point. Otherwise, and I'm swapping the spawn point that's already there with a new one. Okay, so every time the player dies, they'll go to that new spawn point. Okay, so how does this look? Well, to fix this, we need to drag and drop some stuff. So again, this is where again a prefab would come into play, would be really nice. One thing to note is we can combine some of these. So there's nothing wrong with putting checkpoint 4 inside of or spawn point 2 instead of checkpoint 1. You can totally do that for order. That's totally fine. You can keep them separate if you want as well. I'm going to put them inside of the other one. It doesn't really matter because it's going to be relative to the checkpoint anyway. So for example, spawn point 3 is going to be here, and spawn point 4 is going to be here, and this one's going to be here. In fact, now you can rename all these spawn point and it wouldn't matter. And I'm forming up what it's starting to look like a prefab. So again, I can add in a C# script called checkpoint controller. Here it is, and I want to add them to all of them. So I want to add the same script to all of them. I can do that, right? And what I want to do, again, perfect example of a place to put a prefab. Checkpoint, I want to drag and drop the spawn in there, spawn point, right? For each checkpoint. And player, same thing. So, but I want this player, not this one. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but just probably better. So a bit of duplication. But again, we're talking about refactoring in the future. Okay, so there, we've got everything we need. All we want is for that to be changed in terms of spot point. This should be enough to make it go. And I want to put all this inside of a greater one. So we'll make a create empty, and we'll call this checkpoints. And we'll put all these in here. So that way we just organize ourselves. All I'm doing is organizing. I'm trying to keep this as low as possible. There's lots of ways to do it just like this and better. Alright, so let's try it. So if everything goes well, then we should be okay. Let's move. So if we die right now, again, to demo this, if I die, back to this, right? If I go here, and I'm able to pass my baddie, somehow. If I'm able to pass my baddie... No! Oh, God. And I'm here, I pass through, but it reset. Let's try that again. One more time. I know it's frustrating to watch me play, and I'm a bad player. I apologize again. Hey, I killed him. Alright. But that's pretty cool. But if I die here now, I'm back to there, right? And that's funny. That's a glitch. See, I'm always going to come in there. And what this is going to do for me is, let's heal a little bit. There we go. We'll heal here too. And we'll touch this thing and move over. And as soon as I get to the other side, it's going to allow me to go to the next checkpoint, right? And now there's a baddie over here that I'm going to see coming up. Oh, I turned him off. That's pretty cool. So I'm over here now, and if I die on this side, then that's okay because it'll transport me to, if I had life, it would transport me back to the other checkpoint. So it kind of works. Let's put that baddie back before I forget. So again, I'm going to go back to my enemies. I'm going to turn that enemy back on so I don't forget. Questions. So I've got checkpoints. I've got platforms that are moving. I've got bullet firing from the player. There's still some issues for sure. I think we could use probably a little bit of friction on the platform to slow the player down just a touch. Just a bit, right? And only on platforms, not on ramps. Because I think if we put it on ramps, it'd slow them down too much. But that's something we can totally do. And the way to add that little friction is there's already a little material. So if we go to under materials, there is a ground material. The ground material has a bit of bounciness, but a lot more friction, right? We can take this ground material and attach it to any place I want. For example, only on platforms. So if I scroll down, you can see that there is a rigid body 2D with a physics material spot. I can just drag and drop this ground material onto the ground material right here, right? And what this is going to do is slow him down a little bit in terms of stopping, right? So he's not going to be as slidey, right? Still be able to jump, but it's going to slow him down just a touch to make his controls just that much, better. And if I want to make it so that it's more bouncy, we can add that in too, because I can go to the ground material and change his bounciness, which used to be called restitution back in the old days. If I made this something like 0.8, I think I've showed you guys this before, then he's going to bounce nicely. Like so, right? And if I bounce more, it's going to really bounce him. Right? So it's going to make a very bouncy material, unrealistic in terms of bounce. If we want a little bit of bounce, we can go back to what we had before, which is like 0.2. 0.2 to 0.4, I think, would be reasonable for most cases. I think anything beyond that, then that's okay, right? Like a little bit of bounce, but then he's really bouncy. He's not like a bowling ball. And notice how he's this jittering. It's jittering because of the bounciness. So if I was to reduce the bounciness down to 0.3 or even to 0, right? Let's go to 0 bounciness. And if I run this now, the physics simulation will be static. See that? Look at that. Look how better that is. So now there's no bounciness. He just lands. And I think that might be the best. So good, static, no bounciness on the platforms, right? A little bit better control. I only did it on the platforms, but not on the walls or on the or on the ramps, because I think it's too much. This is where we have an advantage of decoupling, different terrain features, right? And what this allows me to do is get more control. So when I want to try and kill him, I think I killed him, but when I want to try and kill him, then it's not as bad, right? I think I nailed him too. Let me see. Nope, I did not. He killed me, even though my bullets do like a bunch of damage, right? I think it's 50 damage each. So but the thing is, if I'm going to play this game normally, then I think the tactics now will come down to dynamics for the player. I'm allowing the player to see the enemy and kill them before the player gets there, right? So that's the idea behind this, right? So I can kind of travel along. Again, there's some mechanisms that are missing at this point, and the mechanism that are missing is the way to recall. Okay, so now I'm gonna get hit. Well, we know this is gonna happen, right? Where he died, but because he crossed over into this checkpoint, he's there now, right? So that's pretty cool. I'm gonna go to the next checkpoint and see if we can make it all the way up without dying. And you can see that the player now is going from one platform to the other. This is a little bit of a longer jump. This is a possibility that he'll die, and if he does, he'll start over. All right? Questions so far? We're going to take a break here. I think we've gone to about the halfway mark. I'm going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about a couple more things, and then that's it for lecturing for this semester. Any questions, concerns? Would you do it differently? Again, these are just thoughts I'm trying to share with you in terms of the way we've done it. Kat always has some great ideas. Kat, what are your thoughts? Maybe you can come on, type it in the chat there. No thoughts. Okay, no problem. I think you do. That's just me. How about anyone else? Anyone else have ideas? How about Alex? I haven't seen you in a while. Alex, what are your thoughts? Thank you. Everyone is drained of thoughts. Yes, I agree with us. No thoughts either. Yay! I got no thoughts either. Let's take a break, guys. It's a great place to take a break. I'm going to save this project. File save project. And I'm going to put this up on GitHub so you guys have it. Git commit -m. We'll say added checkpoints. Git push. And once it's pushed, we're good to go. I think you'll have everything you need as some good examples of how to get going on some of the stuff we've done. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now, and when we come back, we'll just finish off the last part. Okay, let's